the technology is amazing. And all of this social media push and all of these things that are happening, it all belongs to training and events in the old context of the definition of those things. They all have a place.
So we're back with Mark Beiderwieden, and we are having the most epic conversation. This section, we are going to be dealing with training and events. And I'm really looking forward to this section. Thanks for joining us again, Mark. I'm looking forward to hearing what you say about training and events.
Pleasure's mine.
They are. Yeah.
How do you want to start? It's a big, broad topic.
It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. So if anybody has looked at some of the other material, other videos here from the sessions, we've talked about incentives and recognition and things like that. Really one of the ABCs, one of the top cannot miss topics of starting a business or building a sustainable business is training. And when you talk about events, don't confuse them, please, with incentives that take place, because that's just a totally different beast. Go back to video number 4 and have a look at it. We're talking about company-led events and gatherings of people at different venues at different times, sometimes depending on qualifications and whatnot. So what are happening at these events? It depends on the number of people. You have a lot of times when companies are starting off, or even as they go on, companies have venues at different locations, geographically important, and have opportunity meetings, for example.
Oh, so that would be
Right.
considered an event?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because it's to me, an event is any time that the company is involved with the organization of what is happening, right? An opportunity meeting is an event. You have meetings, again, geographically, wherever the country or the province is, or wherever you're working, where depending on the qualifications, certain information are important for the company to get to you in person, whether it's motivation, communication, whether it's changes to things, whether it's product launches, those kinds of things. Not messages necessarily for everybody, but for particular groups.
Okay.
So, again, same thing as continuous recognition, same thing as your incentive programs. You get together with your key people and say, what are the messages to which target groups and when do they have to be? And you organize your calendar accordingly. Weekend events, opportunity meetings, training events. What are we training on? Who's responsible? At the end of the day, the company isn't going to have the ownership of training everything. That's not the philosophy behind multi-level marketing. People are receiving their compensation partly because they are training other people to be successful as well.
Yeah.
So, are there train-the-trainer programs? But again, what are you training? On product, on the compensation plan, on behavior, on rules, on all of the other components that we've been talking about. Compliance, right? Continuous, right? All of the things that we've been talking about need to be well-versed by the individual distributors or independent business owners, whatever you call them, depending on where they are. When do they start to teach those things, and when do they need to be taught those things?
And how much is the company responsible for structuring those events? So for example, does the company say, okay, this is how a opportunity meeting is run. This is what slide deck you use. This is how you send the message across. Is the company trying to make sure that there's compliance through systemizing those things? Or is the company just saying, listen, that's your message, go and get it across however you want?
I think that's a really good question that doesn't have a scientific answer to it. The more you can control the message, the better. But going back to a statement I made before, know your role. Because there are certain things where company sales coordinators, regional coordinators, whoever those people, even trainers themselves, if they haven't done certain things, then they're going to be caught off guard. Their credibility in being able to teach people how to sponsor and how to go walk through the theoretical part of actually trying to bring somebody into the business, but if they haven't done it 100 times themselves or tried to do it, they're going to get caught, right? So know your role, and when I say you, I mean you company, right? And agree with the leadership. How are we going to get this done? This is the goal. How are we going to get this done together? We're talking about rules and compliance and things like that. It's probably better if a company person is talking about it. If you're talking about continuous recognition, things like that, sure, a company person can do it. We're going to get into the things about how to handle negative comments and how to handle the no's and how to motivate people and how to get them to make that first order and all those kinds of things. Those are clearly experiences that are found in the field, right? So find a way to get the resources from the field into these meetings, into these events, whatever the sequence is of them or the cadence, and tag team on these things.
So you would actually go to your leadership and say, okay, who's an expert in
absolutely
handling objections? Mm-hmm. Get them into the studio, put a video together, put a document together, whatever, and then have that available to the field.
If your method of communication is video, wonderful. If you have in-person roadshows that take place, which are common, in a particular time period to pick your number, 10 cities in 10 days, something like that, then you organize yourself that way. No matter, whatever the medium is, that doesn't matter, right? But yes.
But one of the nice things about doing the training via something like YouTube or an e-learning platform is that you can reach everybody, no matter where they are. Even if you do 10 cities in 10 days, you're only reaching a fraction of your people because there's 200 cities, and either they've got to come from wherever they are to that city that you're in, or they don't get the training. Whereas if you do put it out on video, your reach is greater.
I cannot disagree with that, but I do put a comma on the sentence.
Okay.
And that is coming back to other components that we've talked about, where we said the community is important. And if I want to motivate and get people's loyalty to be building, I can do it more effectively if we're in person than I can if he's watching a video of mine on YouTube. Okay, so I'm not by any means a conservative old whatever diesel engine that is living in the past and saying no to technology. Just the opposite. Technology has its place. Videos have their place. All of this stuff has their place. But human nature is human nature, and you cannot argue against, well, you could argue against it, but I think you're going to lose, that in person is always going to be more effective than on FaceTime. I mean, you want to build a long-term relationship. Are you going to marry the person that you met on Zoom without even and the first time you're going to see him in person is when you get married and you're in the altar? Probably not.
No.
Okay,
sure.
But that's
good analogy.
I just thought just now. I mean, literally, because the technology is amazing, and all of this social media push and all of these things that are happening, it all belongs to training and events. In the old context of the definition of those things, they all have a place.
So you bring the people together, and that is where the most effective training happens.
To me.
What about, so training, there's a component of training called coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that, I mean, do you want to talk to the difference between training and coaching? I'm sure you know the difference, but do you want to talk to that? And where does coaching fit into this, and how does coaching take place in the real world? I only ask difficult questions.
This is a good one. I have not given thought to this topic for decades. Honestly, no. I haven't. I see train the trainer programs, but I don't have any experience where the company is providing coaching programs. I have coached people, and I have in the company that we have now, I have coached multiple people in what they're doing, but I have not built a coaching program. I can't talk to that.
No. And so kind of one of the things that we've been doing is, and it's a simple thing, it's not like a proper coaching program, but to share with the guys, look, we go together. I do, you watch. Then we do it together, then you do it, I watch, and then you do it.
Okay.
And so although that's not a proper coaching program, that might be sort of
But that's not, because my perspective is on all of these topics has always been from my employee position, right? And I try and put a field position on this, on a lot of these things, and think, how would the field do this? But I don't see what is duplicatable. If you talk about a program like that, where first I show you, then we do it together, then you do it, and I comment later, and so on. That's something that a distributor is doing.
Yes.
Right. That's not something the corporate could ever do.
No, they can't.
Right. That is clearly a field responsibility. And then the question is, okay, does corporate participate in the development of those steps?
Well, that would be the question. Should they? And the question is, are they skilled enough? Do they have the skill set to do it? And if they don't, do they involve the field in helping them develop that program so that it becomes duplicatable?
So, frankly speaking, is that most of these kinds of programs are driven by people who have no field experience and are very theoretical, and unfortunately are not involving the field in the development of the programs, and the things are launched with great investment in time and effort and money, and they're launched to the field, and you can see by the number of clicks and downloads and unopened emails and whatever other ways that you have, that they're somewhere between useless and ineffective.
That's concerning, because so then you are completely reliant on your field to make sure that this kind of thing is happening properly.
I'm not necessarily reliant, but if we're going to provide the materials, and then the field needs to be involved in the development.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. Anything that's developed in a corporate sales or marketing conference room without leadership input into those topics that are field driven, they won't be worth their salt.
And the field won't buy into it,
Never.
and the field won't push it.
No.
And so nobody does anything.
No, because it's your idea, not mine. It's normal.
Yeah, it's 100%. But this is something that a lot of the CEOs out there are coming with a top-down mentality, because they come out of traditional businesses. And in a traditional business, we sit around the boardroom, everybody has their say, I'm the chairman, I make the final decision, everybody gets on board with that.
This is our pricing, this is going to be our advertising campaign, this is how we're going to pay our employees this year, whatever this is our product portfolio for the year, and these are investments.
This is the corporate training we're going to do, whatever.
Right?
And the chairman has the final say.
Right.
Could be disagreements around the table, but then everybody has to get on board with the decision that's been taken in that boardroom.
Yeah.
It's very different in the field.
Yeah.
It's very different in the field. So you can put out that training. So what you're saying is you can put out that training, but the field is going.
Richard, it goes back to a couple of the other topics. I have always been an advocate and a fan of, wherever possible, sitting down with trusted leaders to, at a minimum, pressure test my thoughts, right? Before I go on record, or before we launch something, or if we're in the development phases or things like that. I'm not talking about, giving away the house. I'm not talking about showing everybody my profit margins or anything like that. But I'm saying, makes sense, right? Before I try and fix my own engine of my car, maybe it makes sense to ask a guy that's been educated as a mechanic, am I doing this right? It doesn't mean that he has to do it for me, but at least make sure that I'm doing it right.
And he could have input. I mean, talking about the training, you get five top distributors around the table. The amount of knowledge they have on real world, the real world side of building your business, you can't get that.
Yeah.
I mean, without being in the field for 10 years like they have, how do you get that?
Yeah. I mean, it's easy in theory for anybody, whether it's a software developer or whether it's somebody who's talking about social media or referral marketing, all these kinds of topics that are out there right now, to say, find a friend. Everybody's got this polished step by step. Find a friend, ask them open questions whether they're interested. Send them a link. Download. Do this, do that. But it's all theory. Where the experienced leader in the field might say, you know what? Steps 1, 2, and 3. Every time you're spot on. But after that, that's the biggest hurdle in the world. We can't get past that. This is the way we do it.
Yes.
We don't know. We just think that the theory works, and we don't know if it actually is working that way in the field. Why? Because we ain't doing it every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And somebody who is doing it every day is kind of polishing it and lubing it and making it fit and adopting and adjusting. He's a chameleon. Every single person that he is engaged with, he's a chameleon, and he's changing his colors just a little bit along the way to adapt to the person he's sitting in front of right now, right?
Yeah, and another sort of, let's say, a bit of advice would be that if you've come up with a theoretical concept, is to test it in the field before you go and apply a whole lot of capital to it.
Yes.
Test it, see how it works, and then you find out that exactly what you said. Point 1, 2, and 3 work like a bomb, but point 4 is not happening.
It's a great segue, because one of the things that I tried to encourage from a corporate perspective was what I coined as create the pull. Okay, so you're not pushing initiatives on people. You want to create pull. You want to create demand. So if you've got a really cool idea, find 1 or 2 leaders and test it. Because if it's successful, your measure of success is how loud they're pounding on your door to be the next in line, or saying, how dare you just only test it with them, you didn't test it with me. Then you know you've won. Right? When you get that finger pointed at you, how could you? Because if it's not successful, well, you just saved yourself a whole bunch of time and effort. Create demand, create the pull by testing, and if it's really successful, they're going to line up and be pounding to be next, and then they're going to demand a regional, national, global rollout or whatever if it's
working.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen this in real life. We just launched a small app into one of our clients' business, and the app does a whole lot of fundamental things in terms of generating leads. But we tested it with a tiny group of people.
Right.
And everybody is angry that we didn't test it with them.
Good.
Because
Perfect.
suddenly this little group of people is getting all sorts of results that everybody else is not getting. And so it's exactly what you say.
What more do you want?
That creates the pull.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know, before we go and spend a shed load of money on this app,
Right.
we know that it works. And now you can roll it out to the rest of the country.
Yep.
And so getting back to the events.
And concerning events and training, it's the same, right? It's in all of the initiatives, but specifically with training, test it first. Make sure that the messages are, you get those dial sessions and whatnot. Even if it's a big deal to you, then test it, figure it out, right? Make sure that before you start your roadshow, that somebody said,
that's actually doing it.
Yeah.
Then around the product, there's the training around the product is also incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
Because a person comes to you, they say, look, here's $500, I'm paying you because I want to be part of your business. I get my starter pack, but I'm giving you permission right now to teach me everything I need to know about the product. I'm actually paying you to teach me. It amazes me how few companies take the opportunity to really dig deep and teach the person about why the product they're selling is the most amazing product on the planet.
Why?
Why did you tell me?
Because unfortunately, and this is where you know you can have your debate, but when you're talking to top leaders in the field, they're going to teach duplication. They're going to teach sponsoring first before they teach product. That unfortunately product is more the byproduct, and the bigger focus is just expanding the field itself. And this is where you need a meeting in the minds. This is where you need to have that discussion. This is where you need to understand that the company needs to take a position in its value set, in its core direction, and ask, what do I do? What do I put in place? What incentives? What recognition? What do I do to make sure that those new people coming in are practicing the right behavior that is going to ensure a long-term business for all of us, where everybody is achieving that what they're looking for in this business. And unfortunately, if you're being driven by leaders that are looking for the exponential growth that is difficult to manage, then those people will be taught to put together a list and do this, and you can see the productivity and the lack thereof in the statistics of the people who are being taught that way. It's plain as day, and there's really no way around it. And when you have the proper mindset and an agreement with the field that, you know, product, nobody is getting money, nobody is getting compensation without product moving.
Yes.
Right? Product has to be sold. You're not getting paid because you're sponsoring somebody. That's called a headhunting fee. Right? They're illegal in any market that I've ever worked in.
Yes.
There are no headhunting fees. So that ain't gonna work. So if I'm not moving product, what am I moving? Right? So just brings it full circle.
Yeah, and also in for a big chunk of the 80s and early 90s, it was all about recruiting.
Yep.
So before that, in the sort of 60s and 70s, you had the Avons and the Tupperwares and the Amways and all of those kind of companies where it was a direct selling business, where you would take a product, go and sit in somebody's home, you'd pitch the product to them, maybe you have 5 people around the table, they would buy the product, you'd go and pick it up from the office, you'd deliver it to them.
Yeah.
Then in the sort of mid-80s, suddenly the whole computer systems kicked in, everybody started to be able to track big networks, and we saw a shift to pure distributor-based distribution. So your distributor became your consumer.
Right.
What I'm seeing now,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, but what I'm seeing now is because of regulatory pressures, is that we're now getting back to the place where you have to sell the product. Your distributor has to be able to make a living without recruiting a single IBO.
Right.
And so now in the States, for example, you've got the 70-30 split. 70% of your people have to be pure customers without any dog in the fight in terms of being an IBO or a distributor.
Yeah.
And so this brings me back to the question, is how important is it to teach your people about how brilliant the product is? You don't need to teach them to sell it.
Right.
Because if you go and see a goodmovie, you tell
You
everybody
sell it
about
yourself, yeah.
You sell it.
Yeah.
So all you got to know is how brilliant the product is.
Right.
You know? And I know Amway did. I mean, Amway had
Brilliant product training. Yeah, absolutely.
some of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So in terms of how Amway was doing training, how did you guys handle that in Europe? What was the sort of process?
So we had regional autonomy at the time. We didn't have any global programs, and we had different ways of doing things. And at the time, we were very hands-on, and we had basically coordinated at the European level. We had training programs that were were developed and executed in the field with trainers that were in multiple markets and multiple languages and so on and so forth. And that was literally their job. And these people were on the road day in and day out, and that's all they did.
Were they company paid?
They were company paid people.
Okay, so you had a team of company employed trainers,
yep,
who would then go into the field.
And they would piggyback events that were taking place in different cities and on different nights every day of the week. And sometimes those were company events. Most of the time they were distributor weekly meetings that were taking place somewhere where distributors were just getting together on different topics and on a weekly basis. And our trainers would go to those meetings, and that's what they did, literally, 7 days a week.
And they were talking about specifically product training, or was
as a rule, product. Yeah.
Because that's,
new launches, new attributes, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Did they talk about how to sell the product, or was it just teaching the people how brilliant it was and then allowing them to just have their natural enthusiasm take the sales?
We had a couple of people who were qualified to talk about how to sell as well, but without the field experience, that was not something that we wanted anybody to touch. But we had a couple that were qualified to do that and did it well, but they had the experience. They knew how to do it, and it wasn't something that we wanted somebody to do just in theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're getting out of the blocks, new company, or even an existing company for that matter, who doesn't have this kind of thing in place, this is obviously an issue that they need to focus on.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't teach the people how to do the business, they're not going to learn how to do the business.
I would say this with confidence, that if you don't teach them about the attributes of the products, if you don't teach them the right things, they will create something else to say. Because they're going to get asked questions, and if they don't have the answers, they're going to make them up.
So, and that can land you in hot water, because
Right.
then they're making claims,
Right.
Don't worry, you cut your arm off, you take two of these pills, arm grows back, no problems.
Yep. That could work.
And I mean, I've been in the field and listened to distributors of mine who have been trained make the most outrageous claims. Well, I mean, you can't say anything when you're in the meeting, but afterwards you say to them, listen, I just need to say.
Well, and I don't want to go down this trail too far, but if you have products where you believe that there could be a risk, because you need to ensure that the claims that are made are signed off on, then that's what you have to do. Then you have to create that unnecessary or burdensome paper trail to prove that you don't do this until you're not allowed to represent this product until you've done
this training or whatever.
Whatever. I've seen that. Pain. You hope you don't have to go there, right? But if you need to, you can. I would hope that you don't have to.
Otherwise, you can get again. This is a compliance issue.
Goes back. It's full circle.
Back to compliance, and you can land yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
Mark, that was an interesting topic. I really enjoyed it. And thank you very much for that.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see you next week at the next one.
Sounds good.
Even though we're doing it all in one day. Anyway, in our next section, we're going to be dealing with startups, how to start up one of these businesses, and also choosing the right IT system for your company. So I'll see you back in the next session.